All right, in this video, I'm going to explain how it is that it is known ahead of time that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash on January 17th, 2025. This will be one of countless ways in which this is known ahead of time. This information, this revelation came to me this morning, and what I did was jot it down into an email that I sent to some friends, but it really is a continuation of two prior videos, which are the U2 War prophecy video on this channel and the Pope Francis atomic bomb prophecy video on this channel. And I'll explain why these two things connect. It's a big story, and it's partly been explained in the other two videos. I'll do my best to keep the information that's already been explained brief, but perhaps you haven't watched the other two videos anyway. Regardless, all three of these videos need to be watched. And so let's begin by saying that the band U2 is being used by God here. Their album Joshua Tree that took over the US charts is symbolism for Joshua in the Bible and the walls of security that collapsed in God's judgment. In fact, their first single from that album was released exactly 151 months or 1,260% of a year before the Joshua Tree, California earthquake, the 7.0 earthquake. And the Israelites marched around the walls of security of Jericho once per day for 7 days. And then on the seventh day, they marched around 7 times while blowing 7 trumpets. It was in fact a 3 sets of 7, which is why the first single from Joshua Tree was released exactly 777 days. 777 weeks exactly before Bono and U2 played at the halftime show for the most prophetic Super Bowl in Super Bowl history, and Super Bowls have been very prophetic in general in God's signs, which was the Super Bowl right after 9/11, in which the Patriots played, the New England Patriots, the most important team, the most important sports team in God's prophetic signs. Well, anyway, here's a diagram. That Super Bowl was Super Bowl 36, and that's very prophetic too, because this number is symbolic of 3 sixes, 666, the number that symbolizes the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. And that's also relevant to this because 151 is the 36th prime number. And so also 36 hints at 666 because it is 6 times 6. And also the 36th triangular number, in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 36th row is 666. And 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 36 equals 666. But 666 is the number of the Antichrist, but the period of the Antichrist is 1,260 days, mentioned 7 times in Bible prophecy, and that's why we have this symbolic 1,260% of a year to the extremely prophetic Joshua Tree, California earthquake from the release of the Joshua Tree album. The first song of the album, like in chronological order, not in the order of songs released as singles, is Where the Streets Have No Name, and the first lyric of the song, in other words, the first lyric of the album, Joshua Tree, is about tearing down walls. And again, Joshua led the Israelites around the walls of security before they were torn down in God's judgment. And so that's amazing confirmation that the Joshua Tree album is in fact symbolism for what I am saying. I'm sure Bono didn't know, or maybe he did, because they formerly were a Christian rock band, maybe he did know that the first lyric of this album named Joshua Tree is about tearing down walls. Very could well be, actually, that he knew that. There is a song on the album named In God's Country. Clearly, the band had not completely lost their faith at the time of the production of Joshua Tree. And even if they had, I mean, they could still have that knowledge and still, whatever, use it as poetry, this lyric. Anyway, so I'm sure there's a reason why, that's probably the reason why they named their album Joshua Tree, come to think of it. But this diagram, I've explained before, this actually was a date that we expected in advance, and we did receive the exact symbolism in terms of prophetic signs that was expected. That was the day that it was announced that by the leader of Israel, as in symbolism for Joshua, who led the Israelites, that the IDF had broken through the wall perimeter of security of Gaza City and were operating in all of Gaza City. And there was a incident, super fog, I believe, super fog incident, a car pileup on the I-10 highway. And actually, it was right in New Orleans. And this Super Bowl was played in New Orleans. I just realized that. Wow. Whoa. No kidding. It really does all connect. It's just amazing. I didn't realize that until now, and that just is so amazing. The super fog car pileup national news story. There's more details that I forget, but anyway, that all of the analysis in this diagram is correct, and this Super Bowl was all about the number 17. It was right after 9/11 when two planes struck the two towers 17 minutes apart, which is why the game is known for the last minute of the game, in which the Patriots started from their 17-yard line with the score tied 17-17, and then staged the dramatic drive to win the game. It was exactly 17 years before their final Super Bowl win, the Patriots, because God is pointing to the Patriots in New England and the founding of America, with the spiritual founding of America with the Patriots, and also the Pilgrims. And anyway, this was the 17-year anniversary, and they won the Super Bowl again. Tom Brady went into the Super Bowl with 17 Super Bowl records. Him and Belichick had won 9 out of 11 Patriot Super Bowls. Anyway, and then it was 17 days to this date, which was expected in advance. This is a date that's also part of this theme of God pointing to this number 117. Actually, the signs on this day pointed to Zechariah 1:17, which I explained in other videos. But anyway, Kamala Harris is predicted to crash on January 17th, 2025. And in fact, this date connects with an exact number of months to that date, and it's prophetic. But that's enough explanation, because I don't want to really make this video about this diagram. But anyway, the Joshua Tree, California earthquake, which connected to the release of the Joshua Tree album, was exactly 188 months to the symbolic beginning of Trump. And again, the walls of security collapsed on Jericho when Joshua led them after they blew trumpets, and then the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. This was just after Trump turned 69, and that's extremely prophetic from the most central prophecy in the Bible regarding the final period of 7. And again, the Israelites marched around the walls of security of Jericho for 7 days. It's a 7 years in that prophecy. Anyway, this is when he had descended the golden escalator in Trump Tower, the symbolic beginning of Trump. 188 months, because God points to this number frequently to symbolize H188 in Strong's Hebrew Concordance, which is the word that means woe, ! Used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. In other words, Trump has been trumpeting extreme judgment from God. That is the reason for the rise of Trump. In archaic English, the word trump means trumpet, or the sounding of a trumpet. Trump has been trumpeting the Antichrist and the end times. And if you think about it, if you recall how he came to political power or popularity in the first place, was calling out the Antichrist for not having been born in America. Speaking of America and the album Joshua Tree, which was the album that took over the charts of America and is about America. There's songs on the album about America, including In God's Country. that being the name of the song. This was the America Super Bowl with the Patriots, and Bono played in this for the halftime, and the U2, I should say. And during the halftime show, though, what made me think that is because he was wearing a leather jacket, and during the show, he opened it up to reveal that in the inside, the lining was an American flag. Okay, and so 73 weeks exactly, because that hints at 3 sets of 7, to the day that Trump won by 77 electoral votes, and Netanyahu, the leader of Israel, symbolic of the leader of Israel, of the Israelites, had been in office for exactly 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days, 3 sets of 7. This was in turn the day that Trump won by 77 votes, electoral votes, in turn exactly 73 days, 3 sets of 7, to the day that Trump was inaugurated at the age of 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old. And then it was 77 days to the day he launched the missiles into Syria, 59 of them, which is the 7th super prime number. All right, so anyway, that's this diagram. So that's enough of this diagram, I think. Yeah. Okay, that's enough. So back to the subject of this video. Anyway, what's recently been learned is this prophecy from their third album, War, which is made of 3 letters. Okay, and that album is 42 minutes and 3 seconds long. The 42nd anniversary of the release of the first song, New Year's Day, which was the first song to chart in the US, which makes it prophetic because God uses firsts in his signs for signs, and God is focused on the US. The 42nd and 42 years, because 42 months in Bible prophecy is symbolic of the period of the Antichrist. 42 minutes and 3 seconds long, hints at the 42nd anniversary of the first song from this album, which is January 10th, 2025, plus 3 days. January 10th, 2025 is the day that Trump will be receiving his sentencing, and that's because the date 110 hints at 110, the age at which Joshua died, and he led the Hebrews into the promised land on the date 110. Before they blew trumpets, and then the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. America's walls of security will collapse in God's judgment 42 years and 3 days after the release of the album, that is 42 minutes and 3 seconds, which gives us January 13th. The date it is predicted that the bomb will explode, the atomic bomb in New York City, which is the reason for the connection to the album named War, on which is contained, for example, a song named Seconds that talks about or speaks of in the lyrics assembling a bomb in Times Square. The bomb is predicted to explode in New York City, in Manhattan, possibly Times Square, or possibly Wall Street, because Joshua and the Israelites marched around the walls before they collapsed in God's judgment. But also there was the bombing on Wall Street, the 1920 bombing on Wall Street, which hints at the number 192, 1920, and that is the equivalent of the name Obama in English gematria. Now, let's see. That 3-day difference between the 42nd anniversary and the day of the War album and the day of the collapse of the walls of security with the prediction of the dirty bomb or a suitcase nuke bomb 3 days later is also confirmed with Bono receiving the Medal of Freedom from the Irish president. U2 is known for being an Irish rock band, on January 4th, which was 3 days after New Year's Day. the first single released from the album War is New Year's Day. That's the name of the song. That's how all of this came to me on New Year's Day, because when I was 13 or 14, I owned the cassette for the album War. That was back in the day of Sony Walkmans and not having access to an infinite music catalog. And so these cassettes that a person owned, especially at that age, were listened to over and over. And anyway, so these threes, the third album, the 3 Seconds, the song named Seconds on the album, the War album name being made of 3 letters, hints at the Trinity bomb, which was the first atomic bomb tested. It was tested 60 miles outside of Las Vegas. 60 miles is 2 times 30 miles, which hints at the number 23. The name U2 hints at 23. The letter U is the 21st letter, and so U2 hints at 21 plus 2 equals 23. U2 famously opened, they were the first to open the first event ever at the new Sphere Theater in Las Vegas, which is famous for having cost $2.3 billion, which hints at 23. It has 23 executive suites in the theater. And at the same time, on the same day as U2 opened the Sphere Theater, they released their new song, Atomic City. That is the nickname of Las Vegas because it is the city that's the closest to where the first nuclear bombs were tested. In fact, in Las Vegas, there is the Nuclear Bomb Testing Museum. So that's why all of these threes with U2 and the album War hint at the Trinity bomb. All right, now, it wasn't recalled because I stopped following U2 in the 90s, long time ago, and I had not realized or even forgotten that they had another famous album released in 2004 named How to Assemble an Atomic Bomb. That's the name of the album, How to Assemble an Atomic Bomb. This is amazing confirmation that, including the song Seconds on the album War, that talks about assembling a bomb in Times Square, is in fact about private actors assembling a bomb and then detonating it in New York City. Well, I don't know if I can't say that they'll be private actors. I don't even know what I mean by that. I mean, in fact, I suspect that God's signs indicate that they're... What can I tell you? I think that... I think it'll even be a false flag, if you know what I mean. I think that's what the signs indicate, because of the connection. Well, the Russian general that was labeled by the intelligence agency of Ukraine as being guilty of, so he heads the Department for Chemical, Biological, Radioactive, I forget his title. Okay, but it has to do with dirty bombs. Let's just put it that way. But he's also famous internationally for being the guy to accuse Ukraine of attempting to build a dirty bomb and then detonating it and claiming it was done by Russia as a false flag. That's what a false flag is, right? When the flag on the ship raised isn't the true flag of the ship, back in pirate days. So It means that the people that did it to themselves in order to blame the other people. Okay? And so I think because the day that that Russian general was blown up with a bomb, the Russian general known for accusing or making accusations of a dirty bomb, that day was December 27th, 2024. That was exactly 9 + 9 + 9 years after the release of the movie Wag the Dog, which is about a scheme to fabricate a war to distract from a presidential crisis. Right? The obvious implication here is that this coming bomb explosion will be done to distract from the process, or I should say presidential crisis in the eyes of the left regarding Trump becoming the president. Anyway, that December 27th date, that is the number 9 is the most important number in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. As from the Bible, it symbolizes God's judgment. And God repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. Okay, so the guy that's symbolism for dirty bombs was blown up by a bomb exactly 9 + 9 + 9 years after the release of Wag the Dog, and 9 + 9 + 9 days before January 13th, the predicted date of the dirty bomb or suitcase nuke. That, in my opinion, seems to indicate that this will be a false flag, which does make sense. Now, back to what I was saying, though, about U2. Okay, so we have this connection, as I've now established, between U2 and bomb, and Trinity bomb, and an atomic bomb, etc. Now, New Year's Day, this day that was 3 days before Bono received the Medal of Freedom from the Irish president, New Year's Day is also important here because this was the 7th year anniversary after a Pope Francis sign. Now, 7 years, because in the most central prophecy in the Bible, 7 years symbolizes the period of the end and the end times, and the period of the Antichrist. 7 years is also 84 months, and the word bomb is equal to 84 in Hebrew gematria, as is the name Obama. And as a result of this crisis, Obama will become the president again. That's the prediction. And that's God playing on the name Obama to hint at Obama. All right? So, this January 1st, New Year's Day, which is again hinted at with the War album, with the song New Year's Day, was exactly 7 years after Pope Francis issued a postcard in which he captioned the fruit of war, and the image was of a boy, a young boy, carrying on his back his dead sibling, even younger brother, baby brother, after the Nagasaki bomb. Okay? Now, U2, the album War, has famously, for its cover art, an image of a boy. Also, the first album of U2's also has as its cover art an image of the boy, an image of a boy, and the name of the album is Boy. Actually, what just occurred to me, and this happens to me all the time, whenever I'm explaining something new occurs to me. New revelation after new revelation. It's the first and third album, actually, that have the cover art of Boy. That hints at the number 13, which hints at Pope Francis, because the Antichrist is described in the 13th chapter of the book of Revelation. Furthermore, the number 13 in the Bible symbolizes the Antichrist. Nimrod, a type for the Antichrist, was the 13th generation from Adam, and Haman, another type for the Antichrist, persecuted God's people, the Jews, on the 2 13th days of the month. Okay, so that's interesting too. That does also further identify Pope Francis with his postcard image of a boy on the first of the month in 2018. At the end of the month, that, by the way, was the day of a full moon. At the end of the month was another full moon, making it a blue moon. A blue moon is the second full moon in the same month. Not only was it a blue moon, but it was also what astronomers call a supermoon. I don't recall the specifics on what makes a full moon classified as a supermoon, but it's rare. And so we had a super blue blood moon. But not only that, it was a super blue blood moon. It was also a lunar eclipse, and it was centered over America. Okay, and anyway, on that day was the day that UNESCO declared the hidden Christian sites in Nagasaki. Speaking of the postcard, which was of the boy in Nagasaki after the bomb, the UNESCO agency of the UN declared the hidden Christian sites in Nagasaki to be World Heritage Sites. 666 days after that, the Antichrist, Pope Francis, was in Nagasaki and Japan at the Hidden Christians Monument. The Hidden Christians, incidentally, are a reference to the Christians that were in hiding because of persecution after they had been converted centuries ago by the Portuguese. And through many centuries, they were hiding. And so that's the hidden Christians. But that's a hint at the hiding Christians from the Antichrist, Pope Francis. All right. So, and that's interesting too, because that further confirms the prophetic significance of the other prophetic sign in January of 2018, which was the boy postcard and about the Nagasaki bomb. All right. So that further brings together U2 and the Pope. But also U2 is from Ireland, and Ireland is very famous for being Catholic. Okay, and so let's see. Now, January 1st was the end of these waves that hit Peru, Chile, and Ecuador. 3 nations. They were they killed 3 people. This is more, and they lasted for a period of days and ended on January 1st, New Year's Day, which further ties to U2 and their 3rd album named War, and like I have explained, ties U2 to the Trinity bomb. All right? Now, the waves began on December 25th, these extraordinary waves. You might have seen them in the news. They also coincided on January 1st, or the ending of the waves, with a prophetic moon. Because again, the 2 signs in January of 2018 coincided with the prophetic full moon. This was a prophetic new moon, a dark moon, which was said to be ominous given that it occurred right at the beginning of the year, this dark moon. Anyway, the dark moon and the sun were in the constellation Sagittarius, but if you draw the lines together of the main stars, you can get an image of a boat. And that was the iconic scenes of these waves on the coast of South America, which incidentally is where Pope Francis is from, the southern part of South America. And like these waves, and anyway, the scenes of the waves were of these boats crashing in the waves, if you saw that in the news. So that was hinted at with the boat. But all of this hints at Luke 21:25, which says there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and people of the nations in perplexity at the roaring of the sea and the waves. Well, that's exactly how the people were reacting on the shore to these unprecedented waves. It was perplexing. What's going on is what was, the thinking, right? And then the passage finishes with, and there'll be fear and fainting with what is coming upon the earth. Now, I'll get to that. So, but it was 3 nations' coasts, 3 deaths, but it shut down the ports. The media story was how it shut down 91 ports in Peru, and ports are symbolic of portal. And 91 is the 13th triangular number, and the waves were 13 feet high. So you've got two 3s and two 13s, which ends at 313, right? Again, 3 deaths, 3 nations' coasts, 13 feet high waves, 13th triangular number of ports closed. The reason for the 3 and the 13 is Pope Francis, because he was elected on the date 313. The reason why that is in itself prophetic is because Rome converted to Catholicism in the year 313 AD, which was the worst thing to happen to Christianity, because it began this period that's still with us today pretty much of the same kind of mentality anyway, of everyone being Christian. And so to bring everyone into the faith, as they would say, the Catholic Church devised all of these things, including retaining the pagan religion that Rome had prior to it, and repackaged it to make it look like Christianity. That's Catholicism in a nutshell. And the thing that God hates most in the Bible is false religion. And the Jews were constantly chastised for mixing their true religion with the pagan religion of their neighbors, and they were ultimately exiled for it, and that's exactly what Catholicism is. It's a mixture of pagan religion and Christianity. Made to look like Christianity, it's the wolf in sheep's clothing, which is why it was always meant to be that a pope would be the Antichrist. That's clear from Old Testament prophecy, and the so-called, or I call it, guessing game of the Protestants and evangelicals is malarkey and shameful, because it's abundantly clear. And the reason why they play the guessing game is because of their false doctrine that has them interpret 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 as what is holding back the Antichrist as the Holy Spirit. But why would Paul refer to the Holy Spirit as a he and a what? And why would he speak cryptically after telling the Thessalonians in that letter that they knew what he was talking about? Why wouldn't he just say it? Well, because he knew that whoever would be in possession of the letter would be in danger, because what he was referring to in terms of a he and a what was the Pope, or rather the Emperor Constantine, moving the capital to Constantinople, the he and the what, being removed out of the way to allow for the rise of the power of the bishops of Rome, who would ultimately become the Antichrist. That's New Testament prophecy, though. That's not even the Old Testament prophecy that's more than clear about the identity of the Antichrist. It's silly that Protestants don't know this anymore. There wouldn't have been a Reformation were it not for this knowledge. But back to what I was saying. That's why the 2 3s and the 2 13s in these waves. But the reason why they hit the shore of Peru and Chile is because of the Nazca lines, which are symbolic of aliens. And the iconic image of the most famous Nazca line pictograph is named or known as the Giant. And when Pope Francis visited Peru and Chile, he wore some garb with a big image of this giant. Well, in the Bible, giants are symbolism for fallen angels, which is the truth about aliens. They are demons pretending to be aliens. It's designed as a test from God for those that claim to be Christian but are not. Because if anyone believes in the possibility of the existence of aliens, which is, according to surveys, the majority of quote-unquote Christians, it means that they are not a Christian. It's impossible for there to be aliens. Not only is the earth the center of God's creation in the biblical worldview, and man the center of God's creation, but God became a man and died for the sins of men, and he did not hopscotch around the universe, dying on other crosses in the form of other alien life forms, dying for their sins also. anyway. So you cannot be a Christian if you believe in aliens, right? That's the whole purpose for the demons coming to be pretending to be aliens. It's a test of faith to weed out the true Christians from the non-Christians, which is essentially the purpose of the end times and the Antichrist. Now, the demons that will pretend to be aliens will pass through the portal, as it's spoken of in Revelation chapter 9, which will be opened with a key, which is why it isn't a coincidence that the Vatican is symbolized by keys. Now, Pope Francis began a ritual on the eve of Hanukkah, Christmas Eve, and well, basically when Hanukkah began, because Hanukkah, the days in the Hebrew calendar begin at sunset, the Pope opened the first of 5 doors on the 5 times 5th anniversary, or the Pope does this every 5 times 5 years. And I'm speaking 5 times 5 for a reason. It's because of the 5th trumpet. The key that opens the bottomless pit is described in the 5th trumpet judgment in the book of Revelation, which is why the Pope opened the first of 5 portal doors in this ritual on Hanukkah, after 5 times 5 years. Now, it was God uses firsts for signs, and this was the first time that the ritual involved 5 doors. The opening of the doors went to January 1st, when the 4th door was opened at the end of the 4-foot-high waves, because they were 13 feet high, but in metric, they were 4 feet high, as the media said. That gives us 2 4s, which ends up the second of the 2 antichrists who gets his power from the first, the 44th president. But the number 4 symbolizes door, because the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet in ancient Hebrew was a pictogram depicting a door. That's how the alphabet originated, right? Same with the English alphabet. It's all rooted back to this, in fact, the Hebrew alphabet and these pictograms, which became letters. So the 4th letter is a pictogram for a door. That's why the number 4 symbolizes a door. We have the 4th door and the end of the 4 feet high waves on January 1st, which was the 7th anniversary of Pope Francis with his bomb postcard, and the 42nd anniversary, essentially, of the song New Year's Day by U2, and God is using U2 to point to the bomb. Incidentally, the name U2 comes from a famous plane crash, or infamous plane crash, which was the U2 bomber. It was one of the big events of the Cold War, as in the album War by U2. Okay, so, and speaking of plane crash, that's the subject of this video. So U2 is named after a famous plane crash. And now I'm explaining how all of this is not only predicting the day of the bomb, which I explained in the other videos, but it's also predicting the date of Kamala Harris's predicted plane crash. Because her plane crash is predicted to be 4 times 4 days after the end of the 4-foot-high waves when the 4th portal door was opened. But not only that, she is predicted to die in St. Louis next to the Gateway Arch, which is symbolic of a portal door. Okay? That's the amazing thing here. Now, let me go through. So not only all of that, though, U2, as I explained, made an album, How to Assemble an Atomic Bomb. In the Bible, a 20-year period is symbolic of a complete period of waiting. It is symbolic of a period of time, and very prophetic in the Bible. A complete period. So on the 20th anniversary of the release of how to disassemble an atomic bomb. That's the name, sorry. If I've been saying how to assemble an atomic bomb, I apologize. The name of the album is How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. Okay, How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. But on the 20th anniversary, they released an album that was consisting of demo tracks and B-sides from the album How to Dismantle, from the production time of How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. On the 20th anniversary, they released this related album named How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb. And that's what we're talking about. And again, there is a song on the album War that speaks of assembling a bomb in New York City. And in that same song is a lyric that mentions the atomic bomb. Okay? The name of the song is again Seconds, and again that's prophetic too, because the atomic predicted bomb is predicted to explode in New York 42 years and 3 days after the release of the album that is 42 minutes and 3 seconds long. Okay, so they released this follow-up album, How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb. And it was released exactly 14 months after they opened the Sphere and the release of the song Atomic City, which pointed to the Trinity Bomb and the third album, as I explained. Well, this 14 months pointing to the Trinity Bomb and their third album, it gives us a 3 and 14. Which hints at the 3 times 14 generations between Adam and Jesus Christ. In the genealogy in the book of Matthew, we have 3 sets of 14 generations. That's how it works. 3 sets of 14 generations, okay? And then, but it's predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis, the area code 314. Okay, now, the How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb was released on November 29th, 2024, just recently, which makes this so prophetic. You figure that this is the last thing that U2 will ever release because the beginning of the end is coming, and are they going to still be making music? I don't know, but this is prophetic because of the timing. Okay, and this day, November 29th, 2024, was exactly 42 days before the 42nd anniversary of the release of New Year's Day on January 10th, like I explained. And the prophetic sign that we expected in advance is trumpet being sentenced. That's symbolism for walls of security collapsing, because again, the Israelites blew trumpets before the walls of security collapsed. And they were led into the promised land before that on the date 110. And they were led by Joshua, who died at the age of 110. And the U2 band, the album that took over the American charts, is the Joshua Tree album. Okay, so and what we're talking about in this video is the collapsing of America's walls of security with the predicted bomb and the crash of Harris, which will lead to Barack Obama, the Antichrist, becoming the American Antichrist. And 42 days, because again, 42 months in Bible prophecy is mentioned 7 times as symbolism for the period of the Antichrist. And so again, this How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb, which is what will cause the walls of security of America to collapse, was released on this day, 42 days before the 42nd anniversary of New Year's Day, which is again 3 days before the predicted bomb, and that's because the album is 42 minutes and 3 seconds long. Now, U2 opened Sphere and released Atomic City on 7 plus 7 months exactly before the release of How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb. Okay, and the release of How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb is in turn exactly 7 times 7 days before the predicted death of Kamala Harris, the 7 times 7th vice president, who is from LA near Joshua Tree National Park. And she's predicted to die in the area code 314. And again, we had the 14 months and the 3 symbolism, as I just explained. And she's predicted to die on the date 117, which hints at 117, a very prophetic number in God's signs, which hints at 110 plus 7. And Joshua died at the age of 110 after he led the Israelites around the walls of security of Jericho before they collapsed in God's judgment for 7 days. That's the reason for this 117 here. But also in the context of what we were talking about regarding the Pope, the number 117 symbolizes Rome, because the peak year of the expansion of Rome, the maximum expansion before it began contracting, was 117 AD. That's because in general, the big prophetic meaning, symbolism of the number 117 is division, to divide. The phrase, let it divide, from the book of Genesis, in Hebrew is equal to 117 in Hebrew gematria, for example. The dividing chapter, the very middle chapter of the Bible, is Psalm 117. The year that divides the expansion and contraction of Rome is 117 AD. So you get the idea. That's because it's God's prerogative to divide. Jesus said, "Do not think that I came to bring peace and unity, but I came to bring division and a sword," which is why the left, which is about unity and peace, etc., in false peace, though, delusioned peace, deception, is anti-Christian. In general, God is about dividing. He is about separation. The word holy means separate from. The left religion, whether it be atheism and socialism, leftism, secular progressive politics, and or the New Age religion, are the opposite. They're about collectivism, oneness, which incidentally is why one of the most famous songs by U2 is One. God isn't interested in one. That Satan is. It's the opposite of God's plan with a capital P. God is interested in separation, division. The whole purpose of God's created order is for this. It's to divide. This purpose of this life is to divide the sheep from the goats. It's for people to make a decision. It's a choice. It's a separation. It's a distinction. Whether you want to be with God forever or not. And so it's a separation of the sheep from the goats, as the Bible says, but also the wheat from the chaff. These are these metaphors used for this. But Jesus even said this, as I just said. "Do not think I came to bring peace and unity, but division and a sword." That's Jesus' words. So much for the mainstream non-Christian understanding of who Jesus is. And the New Age, for furthermore, understanding of who Jesus is. Okay, and that's why Satan, the enemy of God, is waging war on God's created order through abolishing distinctions. The 4 main distinctions Satan focuses on abolishing through leftism, progressive politics, the most dynamic religion of the 20th and 21st century, leftism, is the distinction between man and God, man and animal, the profane and sacred or holy, and man and woman. That's the agenda of Satan, but it's also the agenda of leftism politics. You do the math. Obviously, it means that the left, spiritually, is with Satan. And that's the truth. They are in rebellion against God's created order. They hate it, just like Satan hates it and hates God. That's why the left hates conservative Americans. In general, the worldwide left people hate America, but it's specifically the hatred for conservative Christian Americans. They hate them. They're their enemy. It's irrational completely. They don't even understand it themselves, most of them. But it's spiritual. It's unconscious even. That's why they hate America, including the left in America. That's why, for example, their leader said 5 days before his election, we are 5 days away from radically transforming America. Speaking of 5, that's the fifth trumpet symbolism and the opening of the portal door. 44th president, 4 symbolizing the door. But we are 5 days away from radically transforming America. You do not say that if you love America. You say that if you hate America. It's the same thing with your spouse. You would never say about your spouse, if you love them, that you want to radically transform them. You might say you want to improve them. That's natural. But that's not the same as radically transforming America or your spouse. So anyway, that's the explanation here. So again, it's 49 days from the release of How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb to the predicted date of Kamala Harris's, the 49th vice president's plane crash. And U2 is named after a plane crash. And also, it's relevant too because, as I explained, it's all pointing to the bomb, and this date that's 49 days before the predicted death of the 49th vice president is the release of the new album, How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb. And I explained how we get that date also. Again, 42 days to the date 110, Trump and then 3 days, as I explained. One other thing here too is that this date, all of this reveals the date that the portal will be opened by the Pope, which is June 9th, 2025. At least that's the date God is pointing to. It could be another step because that's how God's signs works. We don't know necessarily in advance whether it will be just a step in the trail of signs leading to the particular event or the end of the trail. And what I mean by the end of this trail is being the Revelation 9-day, fifth trumpet day, fallen angels passing through the portal day, seven thunders day, Antichrist day, aliens day, whatever you want to call it, a symbolic beginning to something. My assumption is that it'll be the day that aliens are in the news in the mainstream media, and it's accepted worldwide that they exist. But of course, they're not aliens, they're demons pretending to be aliens for the sake of fooling people. Now, that day is 159 days after January 1st, the end of the waves that shut down the ports in Peru, which hinted at the Nazca lines and the portals for the giants. And it's the end, and it was the day that the Pope opened the fourth door, on the day that the 4-foot-high waves ended, which not only hints at the 44th president, and not only hints at 4 times 4 days to Harris's predicted crash, but it hints at the opening of the portal. Because again, the waves coincided with Hanukkah. Oh, I didn't finish that. Hanukkah ended at the time that the waves ended. And they began when Hanukkah began, when the Pope started opening the doors. All right. So anyway, the reason for 159 days between January 1st, the ending of the symbolic day for portals, and the day that the portals will be opened, is because 159 is 53 plus 53 plus 53. What does that mean? Well, I know what it means because I've been studying his big picture of signs from morning until night for more than full-time hours for 7 years. And God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is only being explained on this channel. And June 9th was known long before this sign on January 1st, 2025. This is just confirmation. But the meaning of this has become clear because I know that June 9th is the date God is pointing to, and so 159 means something, and it most certainly does when you understand how God's signs works. And God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. So what's with the number 53? Because it's 53 plus 53 plus 53. Well, God has embedded within the number 53 the most profound thing possible, which is the inverse of 53. 1 divided by 53, the secret inside the number 53 that God has hidden is 0.0188. Now, what's with 0.0188? God is using 188 frequently in his big picture of signs to point to H188 in Strong's Hebrew Concordance, which is the word that means woe exclamation mark, used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. And one of the woes is in the Bible, in the book of Revelation. One of the big woes is the opening of the portal and the emergence of the demons pretending to be aliens, etc. And so that's the reason for this 53 plus 53 plus 53 connection here. Now, not only that, though, we have a second witness to this, and that's how God's signs works. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter as the Bible says is required. And 159 happens to be the 53rd semi-prime number. And God uses semi-prime numbers, a number only divisible by 2 other prime numbers, to, again, hide the symbolic meaning in the number. Okay, so it's 53 plus 53 plus 53, but it is also the 53rd semi-prime number. That's a definite woe connection, and that's exactly what we would expect from this end of the trail that included these waves to January 1st that leads one more step to June 9th. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more. Don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.